Somewhere in southeastern Ohio, there is a steel bucket sitting in a roadside park, big enough for a whole family to climb inside and still have room to spare. It is the only surviving piece of the largest digging machine ever built. Everything else was cut up and melted down. And here is the strange part. The machine sitting at our #1 spot was not even the heaviest one on this list, because the machine at #2 outweighed it by 1,000 tons and still came up short. These are 7 of the biggest machines America ever built to dig, lift, haul, and bore its way into the modern world, and the story of what happened to each one. A few of them are still out there. One is still doing the exact job it was built for 60 years ago, and I will point it out when we reach it. Let's start with the one machine here you could still order tomorrow, assuming you had a few $1,000,000 and a mine to fill. The Caterpillar 797F is the largest mechanical drive mining truck in the world. It hauls 400 tons in a single load, roughly the weight of 2 adult blue whales riding in the bed. Moving that takes a 20-cylinder engine putting out 4,000 horsepower, and even with all of that, an empty truck tops out around 40 miles an hour. What I like about this one is where it comes from. Every 797 gets built in Decatur, Illinois, and has been since the late 1990s, which makes it one of the few giants on this list still rolling out of an American factory. The tires alone stand 13 feet tall, which is taller than whatever most people drove to work this morning. Park one next to a 2-story house and the house loses. And yet, measured against everything still to come, the 797 is the small one. That should tell you where this is heading. The next machine is not made anymore, but unlike most of this list, you can still walk right up and stand underneath it. It sits in a field in West Mineral, Kansas, and the name fits the thing exactly. They call it Big Brutus. Brutus is an electric mining shovel, 16 stories tall and 11 million pounds, swinging a bucket that could take 90 cubic yards, about 150 tons of rock, in one bite. It went to work in 1962. Stripping away the rock and soil that buried shallow coal seemed so smaller machines could reach the coal underneath. After only about 11 years, the mine stopped paying off, and the owners ran into the problem that haunts every machine on this list. Brutus was simply too big to move anywhere else. Rather than scrap it, the local mining families did something you almost never see with a machine this size. They turned it into a museum, and in 2018 it earned a spot on the National Register of Historic Places. Today, Brutus is the largest electric mining shovel still standing anywhere on Earth, which is a careful way of saying it was never the largest ever built. The largest of those is coming. Everything so far has worked out in the open, scraping the surface. The next one spent its whole life underground, in the dark, beneath a major American city. Bertha is the machine that dug a highway under Seattle. When Bertha started cutting in 2013, she was the largest diameter tunnel boring machine on the planet. The cutting face measured 57.5 feet across. The body ran 326 feet from front to back, and the whole assembly weighed somewhere around 7,000 tons. There is a twist worth knowing here. This American landmark was not built in America. Bertha came from Hitachi Zosen in Japan and crossed the Pacific in pieces, because almost no one else could build a machine on that scale. Her assignment was to replace an aging double-decker waterfront highway with a tunnel running nearly 2 miles beneath downtown. And then about 1,000 feet in, Bertha broke down. Investigators traced it to a failed seal on the main bearing, which let the bearing overheat until the machine stopped cold, stuck underground while the costs kept climbing. The rescue took 2 full years. Crews sank a pit all the way down to her face, lifted the front of the machine out with a crane, and rebuilt the part that had failed. She finally chewed through the last wall in April of 2017, 4 years into a job that was supposed to take about 2. Once the crews cut her apart, pieces of that record-setting cutter head were handed off to a Seattle museum. The biggest tunnel machine in the world ended up as a souvenir. If number 5 worked under the ground, the next machine worked on the water, and it built 2 of the most important bridges in the country without ever standing on dry land. It is a floating crane that ended up with 2 different names. On the West Coast, they called it the Left Coast Lifter. It is one of the largest floating cranes in the world, carrying a boom 328 feet long and able to pick up 1,900 tons in one lift. A governor later translated that into something people could picture: about 12 statues of liberty, hoisted all at once. Builders launched it in 2009 for one specific job, replacing the eastern span of the San Francisco-Oakland Bay Bridge. The stretch an earthquake had left dangerously weak. When that work finished, the crane did not retire. Crews loaded it onto its own barge and sent it 6,000 miles down the coast and through the Panama Canal, all the way to New York. New York rechristened it I Lift NY and set it to building the bridge that replaced the old Tappan Zee, now named the Governor Mario M. Cuomo Bridge. The plan behind it was clever. Instead of assembling the bridge piece by piece out over the river, crews built enormous sections on land, floated them out on barges, and let the crane drop each one into place in a single move. Just to reach the site, the crew had to flood the barge with more than 2 million gallons of water so the whole rig rode low enough to squeeze beneath the old bridge, clearing it by only a few feet. That is one machine, 2 coasts, and 2 landmark bridges. It is still out there today, floating, waiting for the next big lift. Every machine so far has either stayed in one place or crept along at a slow walk. The next one also crawls, but it carries something none of the others could, a rocket bound for space. The NASA Crawler Transporter is the heaviest self-powered vehicle on Earth. 2 of them were built in the mid-1960s to solve an odd problem. NASA had to move a fully stacked Saturn V moon rocket about 4 miles from the building where it was assembled out to the launch pad and keep it standing dead upright the entire way. Their answer was a tracked platform the size of a baseball infield, 131 feet long and weighing more than 6 million pounds. And this is the connection I promised. The crawlers were designed and built by the Marion Power Shovel Company, and the idea reportedly came from a NASA engineer who visited his father's farm, watched a giant strip mining shovel walk across the land on its own tracks, and realized the same basic machine could carry a rocket instead. The company that built mining monsters built America's road to the moon. Loaded up, a crawler moves at roughly 1 mile per hour, and it drinks fuel by the gallon per foot rather than the mile per gallon. It hauled the Saturn V all through the Apollo years, then switched to carrying the space shuttle from 1981 until 2011, and it is not finished. One of the 2 has been rebuilt and is still on the job, moving NASA's new moon rocket for the Artemis program. In 2023, Guinness made it official and named that crawler the heaviest self-powered vehicle in the world. 60 years after it was built, it is the one machine on this whole list still doing exactly what it was made to do. We are down to the 2 heaviest land machines ever built, and this is where that strange fact from the start comes back around. Number 2 is the heavier of the pair. By raw weight, it is the heaviest mobile land machine ever made anywhere on the planet. They called it the Captain. The Marion Power Shovel Company built it, the same firm behind those NASA crawlers, and the Captain went to work in 1965 at a coal mine in Cutler, Illinois. Fully ballasted, it weighed around 15,000 tons, close to 28 million pounds, and it swung a dipper that swallowed 180 cubic yards at a time. Size was not the only thing that set the Captain apart. It was the only shovel ever built with 2 dipper doors, designed to strip 2 separate coal seams in one pass, working both levels at the same time. Across its career, it shifted more than 800 million cubic yards of earth, more than any single shovel or dragline in history. Then, one evening in 1991, it was gone. A fire broke out inside the machine, and the thousands of gallons of hydraulic fluid it carried turned a mechanical fault into an inferno. The damage went well past saving. The heaviest machine ever to move across land was scrapped the very next year. So the Captain was the heaviest. But heaviest and greatest are 2 different titles, and the one for the greatest digging machine ever built belongs to a single machine alone. Number 1 is Big Muskie, and there has never been anything else quite like it. It was the largest dragline ever built and the largest single-bucket digging machine ever created. Not the heaviest, but the one that could outdig every other machine on Earth. A dragline works nothing like a shovel. Rather than scooping forward, it flings a bucket out on cables, drops it, and drags it back across the ground, hauling in everything in its path. Big Muskie's bucket held 220 cubic yards, enough room to park 2 buses inside, and a single drag pulled in around 325 tons of earth. The machine stood 22 stories tall and weighed 27 million pounds, and only one was ever made, the single Bussarasiri 4250W to ever exist. It did not roll on wheels or tracks. It walked, heaving itself forward on a pair of giant hydraulic feet a few feet at a time, pulling as much electricity as a small town. From 1969 to 1991, across 22 years in the coal fields of southeastern Ohio, Big Muskie moved 483 million tons of earth, several times the volume dug for the entire Panama Canal. People would drive out at night just to watch it run, lit up against the dark. When cleaner air rules and rising costs finally ended its working life, there was a real push to save it, to leave the largest dragline on Earth standing as a monument to what it had done. That effort fell apart. In 1999, the machine was cut into pieces and almost all of it went to the smelter. They did spare one thing. They kept the bucket, that single 220 cubic yard scoop, the one from the very start of this video, and set it down in a quiet park in Ohio where anyone can still walk inside the bucket of the greatest digging machine America ever made. It is the last piece of the king, and it is the only piece left. Now, if you know your machines, you might be saying one word at the screen right about now: bagger. The German bucket wheel excavators, the Bagger 288 and 293, are bigger than anything on this list, by some measures the biggest land machines on the planet. But they never built America, and there is a second catch. They cannot power themselves. They run off an external cable, which is exactly why the crawler back at number 3 still holds the record for the heaviest self-powered vehicle. These 7 are America's own. 7 machines, and only a couple are still out there earning their keep. The rest are museums, monuments, or memories that went to scrap. So my question for you is this: should the others have been saved? Was it worth the money to keep something like the Captain or Big Muskie standing, or was the smelter the right call in the end? Tell me in the comments. And if you want to see where these monsters actually came from, stick around, because next time we are going inside the American factories that turned out the biggest machines in the world.